Next we'll have Berge from Wireless 2020. We'll hear about issues including some of the 5G expectations that we have and also IoT side of the house.
How you doing, everybody? So I happen to be with a company that has a name that lends itself to this topic. We're called Wireless 2020, and we actually had that name about 10 years ago. And it's a play on words. It means both the year 2020, of course, which is a good target for what the future is going to be like. But more importantly, it gives us 2020 vision about what's going to be like in 2020. So it kind of allows us to play around with this. And the topic we have here about predictions for 2017 is kind of easy. We kind of know we can extrapolate from where we are today to predict what is going to happen in 2017. So I'm going to kind of do this a little the hard way. I'm going to try and look backwards from 2020 and say what things have to happen in order to get to 2020. By the way, most people don't know our firm, so I'm just putting this up there while I'm talking. And you can kind of understand who we are. But if you look backwards from 2020, it helps you to get a perspective on the things that have to occur in order for things like 5G to actually have been deployed and be in commercial use by then. So let's try to do that. I'll get to that right there. So future mobility market in 2020. Operators that are in this market, both in the US, North America, Latin America, they've had to ride the wave of network innovation. So when the 3GPP wanted a term to describe the next generation of mobile technology, what term did they come up with? It was called LTE. What does it mean? Yeah. So now 5G is going to be VLTE. Very long-term evolution. And it's going to be equally meaningless. LTE means nothing, literally. It doesn't describe a technology, it doesn't describe a protocol, it doesn't describe a paradigm for what that technology should be like. For those of you who remember, the original purpose of 3G was to increase voice capacity, because the real problem was too many phones were being used and there was too much voice traffic. People hadn't predicted that we would move to mobile phones as fast, so they needed more voice traffic, and there was a big fight between TDMA and CDMA over who could drive the most voice traffic. So when 4G came along, they didn't have that problem. What they had is a much bigger problem. That is, somebody forgot about data. Somebody forgot about IP, about the internet. And so 4G was all about the mobile internet, mobile broadband, taking the broadband service that everybody uses all the time, and they have to make it mobile and available everywhere. So what are we going to do with 5G? Well, we have an emerging ecosystem that's really coming about because there's another wave of LTE that's in the second 5 years of LTE called LTE Advanced. And really, if you look at the releases that 3GPP has for LTE, release 13, 14, 15. These are all on the road to 5G. So in fact, if you looked at that roadmap, there is no 5G demarc. It's just a series of releases, series of technology enhancements to LTE. And they say, oh, by the way, between 14 and 15, that must be when 5G kicks in, because they kind of ran out of things to say about 4G. In the meantime, when they did 4G LTE, they forgot about this notion of virtualization. That is, right now we have an ecosystem of equipment that's hardware-centric, that in fact has boxes that are proprietary and are supplied by different vendors and are not standards-based, generally speaking, and are not really driven by software, so that they have to be replaced rather than upgraded. So we're now moving into this period where virtualization is priority one. And in addition to virtualization, network densification. So we're trying to put small cells, we're trying to build indoor networks, we're trying to create a dense experience so that you're close to the network that you're connected to. You don't have to communicate with a tower that's a mile away. In addition, we're trying to develop new service paradigms. What is the service offering of the future? But in fact, it's taking forever to do it. I'm going to ask you guys, what's VoLTE? You know that, of course. How many of you use VoLTE every day? You probably don't know it if you do, actually. I found an interesting statistic. I just came from 5G North America, and I was running the track on VoLTE while I was there. And depending on which carrier, the percentage of traffic, voice traffic that's on VoLTE ranges from 35% to 85%. Now, you can imagine the ones that are at 35% are behind and haven't finished the tuning of their network that allows them to move most of their traffic. But why is this important? Because we have 2G and 3G networks that are the fallback for voice when you're on 4G, and we have to fall back to those previous generations and the spectrum that resides underneath them. And the longer it takes for us to move everything to voice over LTE, the longer that spectrum is tied up, and those technologies have to be supported in the network. So what we have is 3 layers of network out there. Most of the 1G is gone, analog. But 2G, 3G, they're all there. 4G is on top of that. And we already have 98% coverage of LTE in the United States. So it's kind of crazy. Now we're going to add 5G to this layer cake, right? And when we put that on top, it's actually going to be a much smaller coverage area. It started out that way for LTE as well. But it's even going to be worse with 5G. So in terms of availability, it's going to be very small. We have to start thinking about the disruptive forces and innovation that are going to drive the market. How many of you know a company called T-Mobile? So, they're not only just pink, but they're the Un-carrier, right? So they tend to be the force of not only innovation, but disruption. They do everything the other way. And whatever the way that was, they just do it the opposite way. And, John Ledger, who runs the company, came in with that in his mind, and as a result, large part, they're now number 3 as opposed to number 4 carrier. The Germans don't want to sell them anymore, and they've become a very important force in shaping the industry. We're going to see a lot more disruption taking place. One of the biggest disruptions is the shift from what we've called M2M today, which is vertical industry-specific use of machine-to-machine, to a horizontal model of IoT, where in fact it's all cloud-based. The analytics are built in, and in fact, the devices that are out there are not really machines, they're probes, they're sensors, and they're much less data that'll be coming from them. So we have a whole different transformation taking place. Let me just wrap up by saying that the mobile ecosystem is really facing a huge security threat right now. Those of you who know about the denial of service attack that took place about a month ago, it was because all the surveillance cameras have no security built in. It's kind of ironic that something put there for security doesn't have any security. So they were turned into bots, and they went and aimed back at the DNS servers, and it shut down the internet, shut down the biggest sites on the internet. And if you can take a huge part of the mobile industry and turn it into bots, you're in trouble, buddy. So we got to get security as part of the VLTE network, and we've got to solve that problem before it becomes something that we can't even address. So what Wireless 2020 does is we build business cases, 10-year business cases for how operators can get a return on their investments, capital and OpEx. And we've seen a transformative activity going on. So we tend to work on a lot of these problems and help operators solve them. Thanks.